Hi there, I'm Nicole Wilbur. I'm a writer and story nerd, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I am finally doing the long-awaited by me, anyways, final part to my story grid series where I have been trying to do the entire story grid process. I will leave the links to all of the other 4 videos below. We have done a ton of things with this. There has been a full SCAP page, there has been a spreadsheet, there was a written genre statement, there's been a lot of things happening, and finally today I'm making an infographic. Now I'm gonna put on the screen right here the kind of infographic that I'm about to make, so you can, feel sorry for me, because it looks a little intense, like it looks a little crazy, and I'm a little bit nervous about making this. So first off, this is the story grid, like the visual representation of your story. And this grid, which I think is from the Silence of the Lambs, is the thing that you see. It became like the story grid logo. It's the thing that you see on like all of the story grid merchandise. And apparently you can make one for your story for the low investment of however long this takes me. I'm gonna try to see A, if I can actually create this kind of diagram for my story, and B, if it actually tells me anything about my story, because I don't know, it seems like just a graph, but we'll see. At the very end, we will see the image and we will make a decision. So what I'm going to do now is, it took me a while to figure out like how to do this. He suggested doing it in a spreadsheet and I just wasn't sure how that was going to work, and I have a premium Canva subscription, so I decided to do it on Canva instead. And so I'm going to screen record my screen right now so you can see what I am doing on Canva. So the first step was to lay out, I copied and pasted graph paper on here, and then it was to write the numbers of the scenes all across this horizontal axis at the bottom. And so I only have 7 scenes, thank God, in this story, and so I put the numbers across. You'll be like, what's so special about the 5 and the 7? Nothing. Canva just didn't have this little circle guy for 5 and 7. It didn't have the square person for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6. So I think that that's an oversight with the program and Canva. If I could make a request to have all of the numbers in all of the shapes, that would be very helpful for me. Anyways, so on the horizontal x-axis, we will use 1 box to designate a scene from Silence of the Lambs. So I need to have 7 boxes. Under and above each of the scene numbers, I'll boil down each scene event that I've written on my story grid spreadsheet to the shortest possible phrase or sentence that tells me what's happened. I'll then write the event above or below the horizontal line to designate the value shift of that particular scene. This next step is to move the little box to the around based on the value shift of the scene. So this is where I go to my story grid spreadsheet, and if you are signed up for my newsletter, you can see the story grid spreadsheet for one of my scenes, and that's also the previous video. I look at the column that has the value shift and I figure out where it goes. So the first story is a positive to negative. So, okay, but it's positive to negative. So if it's positive to negative, do I put it where it starts or where it ends? If the scene moves from a positive to a negative value charge, I will put the label for that scene beneath the x-axis to indicate that it ends negative. Okay, so it's how it ends. He doesn't say what to do with these little arrows at the top, because there are arrows on his, but I don't get them. So let me just shift them first. So the first scene is positive to negative. So it goes down here. The next scene is negative to more negative. The next scene is technically, I think I put it as negative to negative. So like it's still negative. I know this is not very balanced. I feel bad. But it's like getting better. It's like less negative. Okay, I'm gonna put the arrows on then, because this is ending negative still, but it's getting better. Already right away, I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't the most balanced spreadsheet ever. So according to the article I'm following, the next step is to focus on the y-axis. The y-axis has to do with the external genre and the internal genre. I'm honestly not even sure, considering this is like a novella in short and it's from 7 different perspectives, that I have a global external genre with like a global internal genre of worldview education, and that's the whole arc of the story. And then each individual story has its own little genre, like a love story. However, 5 out of 7 of the genres are love stories. So what I've done is I've put love, so the value shifts for love on the left, and then the value shifts for worldview education on the right. The value range for love, so you can go all the way from intimacy, commitment, desire, attraction. Neutral is ignorance, and then repulsion, hate, indifference, hate masquerading as love. And then on the worldview education side, you have neutral, cognitive dissonance, and meaning. And then going the other way, we have neutral, meaninglessness, and meaninglessness disguised as meaning. Honestly, whole thing a little bit confusing. It's already looking like a very busy screen, but hey, that's okay. And I honestly don't know if this is even right for this story, but again, 5 out of 7 of the genres are love story, and it is, even though they say, you know, a love story can't be familial love, mine is very familial lovey, and I feel like I can kind of make it work. So we're tracking how the value changes. That's what our goal is here. So we do this by moving from scene to scene on our story grid and evaluating the state of the global value at stake in each scene. Is it positive or negative in relation to the scene that came before it? We'll put a dot on the grid on the vertical axis corresponding to the scene based on the movement of the global value at the end of that scene. It's very confusing because, like, let's take the first scene in my novel. It is negative in many ways. That's what I put on my spreadsheet because of the core action, but it actually ends with a very positive feeling. So I'm not quite sure what to do, but okay, let's take this. So in the first scene, thinking of a love story, this is like a marriage genre story. Then at the end of the scene, we are, I would say we're at repulsion. Okay, so the 2 scenes that really weren't love story, I put one of them at ignorance, and then because that's supposed to be neutral, and then I put the other one at like just not changing. Although if you think of the love story overall, they kind of are at commitment in that scene at the end of the story between all of the characters. So maybe commitment makes sense. Okay, I'll do that. So now I do the same thing for the worldview education. And so gonna put my dots on. I'm realizing as I'm doing this that the dots are covering the little rectangles, which is probably not how it's supposed to look. So I might try to fix that at some point. Okay, so all of my dots are on the screen. It looks like a complete disaster, but now I connect the dots and then my story grid is done. I guess I am gaining something from this, just maybe? Okay, connect the dots and then we'll figure it out. This is just stressful. All right, all my lines are connected and there we go. That is my story grid infographic. Now, I'm gonna put mine beside Sean Coyne's for Silence of the Lambs, and I'm going to point out the fact that his does this really funky thing where like the internal genre starts down here and the external genre starts up here, and then they kind of go like zoop, and then they do a nice little arc, and then they go like zoop, and mine doesn't do that. Mine is very spiky, but I also only have 7 scenes that are all told from different perspectives, and this is mini plot, not arch plot. And not every story can have the same shape, right? That being said, I do wonder if I maybe need a little bit more balance, like the beginning of the story is all bad, the end of the story is all good. That seems like it might be a bit off. Also, they did mention that like the external and internal genre aren't supposed to run in parallel, and mine like don't run in parallel, but at bits they kind of run in parallel. Like, the worldview makes sense to me. Like, it starts good, it gets worse, it gets worse, it gets a little bit better, we have a bit of a blip, and then we get better and like better. That makes sense. Like that, I think if we just isolated the blue on its own, that would make sense for a shape of a story. I'm gonna try to see if I can pull up those story shapes. There's like someone who does story shapes for like, it's famous or something, and it's kind of cool. They'll say like, oh, you start happy, fall in a hole, get up, and there's all these different sayings. So I'm gonna try to see that and compare my blue to that, because I think that's the one that's like the truest showcase of my actual story. Now, does it start going up too soon? I don't know. Like, you will see the scene that I say ends positive, which is like scene number 5. It is actually a dip in the global genre value. So maybe that should be pointing down. It kind of depends what you're looking at though, because in all of these scenes, it's a little bit conflicted. Like, everything is kind of bittersweet. There's good things that are happening on some levels and like sad negative things that are happening on other levels. And so I don't know, man. Maybe I should change the direction of that. This is definitely a hard methodology, and I can see why working with a story grid editor directly is so valuable, because you can do this all you want, but then it's like, all right, so is this good or not? It would be really cool if he had like a checklist or something somewhere that just said like, these are the graphs that you should be looking for, or even like these are the things you should be looking for in your own infographic to kind of check it yourself, like check your own work. Overall though, hey, now I have an infographic image of my story. Woohoo, super fun. Very happy about that. That didn't take that long. It took me about an hour maybe to put that together, so not too bad, not too bad. And we are now done the story grid series. So let me know what you think of this graph thing. Have you ever tried to visualize your story and how it's changing? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It really helps, and I will see you next time.